Mr. Farnham?
I believe that redistricting should be nonpartisan. I believe that if we were able to, get it computer-driven, I would love to see that. I think it should be fair. I don't think that it should be incumbent-driven. I think it should be a bipartisan thing. That's where I stand on that.
And our last question before we go to closing arguments. And this question will start with Mr. Farnham. How do you significantly differ from your opponent?
Well, I'm a man, she's a woman. We both lived in this community for a long time. We probably, all of us have similar friends, many of us. Ruth and I have had this friends up and down this community for years that are common to both of us. I think both of us care about the community and want what's best for our community. I tend to be very focused in Springfield, when I'm in Springfield, on what is it going to impact my community? How can I fight for my community to bring the resources back here that we need here, such as that school funding bill? I think that was a big thing. We've lost, $80 million or more for our school district in the last 8 or 10 years. We need to correct things like that. We need to stay awake and alert all the time and fight for our communities. I love Chicago. I love visiting there. But guess what? I live out here. And we need the resources here just as well as Naperville does, just as well as any community. So we need to get to the budget, and we need to get things straightened out in the state of Illinois.
Ms. Munson?
I agree. My opponent and I have intentions to do what's best for our community, good intentions. And I don't question his intentions one bit, but I think part of the issue we're talking about in Springfield is the execution. When I go to Springfield, I'm not going to vote for the current Speaker of the House. I'm not going to vote for a system and a group of individuals who've got us into this mess. I'm going to vote for someone else because we need change, down there in leadership. I'm going to vote, my very first vote, to change the rules so that if we want a piece of legislation out and it has 71 sponsors, that it's going to be heard and not held in a rules committee because one person can hold it. I'm not going to vote with the Speaker of the House to keep a bill from being heard, especially when I'm the sponsor of the bill. My opponent sponsored a forensic audit bill and then voted on a procedural vote along with the Speaker to keep that bill from being heard, and he was a sponsor of that bill. I'm not going to vote to keep reform measures in Rules Committee on a procedural vote to vote with the Speaker of the House. I'm not going to vote to keep a bill that changes the way a U.S. Senate vacancy is appointed.
Thank you,
that keeps it in Rules Committee. Thank you.
Each candidate will now give a 2-minute closing statement. Again, please hold all your applause. They again have drawn numbers as to who will go first. We will start with Mr. Farnham. 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for being here today, and I really appreciate everybody listening, and thank you, Ms. Munson. Many of you have probably been inundated with slick political mail pieces that too often distort the facts about a legislator's record. As you go to the polls on November 2nd or before, please remember what I really stand for. A more efficient state government that works for our community and spends taxpayer dollars wisely without raising taxes. Increasing taxes is not the answer, as many families are struggling to make ends meet. For the last 21 months, I've been committed to saving the state money. As we recover from the Great Recession, many hardworking families have been forced to tighten their belts, and it's important for the state government to do the same. To that end, I took a pay cut, supported legislation to make it more difficult for lawmakers to increase their own salaries. Now is not the time to accept or give out pay raises. In addition, I returned nearly $20,000 from my district office allotment to the state treasury. Government needs to be looking at every opportunity to do more with less. Right now, we need to find out from taxpayers what their priorities are for state government. And then we need to make sure those services are being provided to Illinoisans at a reasonable cost. On top of that, we must continue to fight to eliminate wasteful spending, such as the excessive overtime paid to state workers in several state departments. It's time to end the state's hiring freeze because putting people back to work costs less than paying expensive overtime. I need your support on November 2nd so I can keep fighting for our community and continue bringing honest representation to this area. Thank you. And go Bears.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and all of you who cared enough to come out today. Thank you for being here on a Sunday afternoon. I too care, whether in political office or not. I have a passion for this community that drives my actions. It's why before I ever contemplated running for office, I led the McKinley School Playground Project and co-created the Downtown Neighborhood Association. It's even when I was no longer in public office, I continued to advocate for you. And now I feel compelled to service again. Our state is on the verge of bankruptcy. We have the highest debt per person in the nation, and even worse, the same people who drove our state into the ground want to increase your taxes. Because of Springfield's mismanagement, job creators have left our state. We're now 48th out of 50th nationwide. In the last 20 months, things have gotten worse, not better. As your state representative, I will take bold action to turn the tide and fight for hardworking taxpayers to make sure that your government is efficient and effective. I respect how hard you work, so I won't raise your taxes, and will make sure that the tax dollars you've already sent to us are spent on the things you care about. Not on pay raises for bureaucrats, not on airplanes for leaders, and not on contracts for cronies. On day one, I'll vote to change the entrenched leadership that has led us down this path to bankruptcy, and I'll work to bring jobs back to our state. I'll not only sponsor legislation to conduct a forensic audit, I will fight for it to have a hearing and wholeheartedly vote for it. I will work to pass legislation to ensure our school districts get the funding that is rightfully theirs, and I will do everything in my power to make sure it happens. If you agree that it's time to change the dynamics in Springfield that have gotten us into this mess, I hope I can count on your vote on November 2nd. Illinois can once again take its place as one of the most dynamic states in the nation, and it starts with your vote. Thank you.
Now it's time for you, the voters, to be heard. Election day is November 2nd. Early voting begins October 11th and runs through the 28th. The last day to register to vote is October 5th. This concludes our forum for today. We'd like to thank you, the audience, for attending, and the candidates for their participation. Now, please applaud.